How can God know the numbers of hairs on our head, when we will be born and die, have plans for us to prosper, and yet not know everything that will happen in our life?
Oh, yeah, that's good. Well, of course, most people think that God does know everything that will happen in your life and then throughout all of history. Okay, so that's what's behind this question. I'm not one of them. And that always shocks some people when they find, what? Because they just assume that was the case. For a number, I have to give a little bit of background to the question, and then I'll answer the question. For a number of reasons, I hold the opinion that part of the furniture of reality that God perfectly knows are possibilities. Because he creates us free, and in my view, freedom means I can do this and I can do that. But it's not a settled fact what I will do until I make it a settled fact. And I don't just hold that for logical, philosophical reasons, though I think there are some compelling logical and philosophical reasons for holding it. But it's mainly because that's what I read in Scripture. In the Bible, God changes his mind a number of times. He regrets the outcome of things, even things that he has at times decided. He asks questions about the future. He speaks about the future in subjunctive terms, that is to say, what might happen, what may happen. He motivates people to do things, telling them perhaps this will happen, but then it turns out not to happen. And if he knew that ahead of time, then it seems like he was lying to them. He's at times surprised by the way things turn out. He's disappointed by things. There's all these things that to me indicate that the future is partly open. It consists of possibilities. And that's no limitation on God. It just is rather describing the kind of reality that God created, if I'm right, a reality that includes possibilities. But he anticipates every possibility perfectly, so he's never caught totally off guard. He's got a plan in place no matter what happens. Now, the question then is asking, well, look at if God knows all the hairs of our head and what's on our, what we're going to say before we say it, and knows this absolutely perfectly, a la Psalms 139, then how can he not know everything that's going to happen in our future? And it's a fair question. My response would be this. Two things. One is, I think I heard in the question a statement that if God has all the days planned for us before we're born, how can he not know our whole life? That comes out of Psalms 139, verse 16. And it's one of the most commonly quoted verses against the view that I just showed you, because in many translations it has, all the days you had planned for me were written in your book before any of them were formed. And I talk about this in my book, God of the Possible. I have a little piece on this on my website. If you just go to gregboyd.org, I have a whole Q&A section there. And incidentally, if there's questions that you wanted to ask and didn't get a chance to, or I didn't get a chance to answer them, go to that website, and you might find that I've got a ton of questions there that I've dealt with over the years, and some essays as well. So it's just gregboyd.org and the Q&A section. So there's a whole, a specific piece that I give there on Psalms 139. And I'll just say right here that the Hebrew does not say all the days ordained for me were written in your book. The Hebrew says all of them that were planned for me were written in your book. It doesn't specify days. And it leaves it ambiguous as to what them is. And many scholars, and the official Jewish translation of the Old Testament, holds that David is referring to his body parts. You recorded all my body parts. Because that's what he's talking about. I mean, the whole thing is about God forming him in the womb. So he's saying, like a real meticulous crafter, you wrote down my body parts before they even formed, as kind of make sure that they're all there. And so I don't regard that verse as being particularly problematic. As to the other issue, it's just this. If everything about the future was simply a deterministic working out of the present, then you could exhaustively predict the future by virtue of knowing the present perfectly. But if you're not a determinist, and you don't think that the future is simply going to be a deterministic working out of the present, then even an omniscient God can't infer what's going to happen in the future on the basis of having present perfect knowledge. And I believe God does have present perfect knowledge. He knows everything perfectly. But insofar as the future is not simply working out causally what's in the present, but rather is a function of choices that we make, to that degree, I submit to you, the future consists of possibilities. And to that degree, then, God knows it as a future of possibilities. And that's how I would reconcile the two views.